Hello, friends, and welcome to the Inside Out Engineering podcast. Today, we are talking to my friend Bruno. Bruno is currently a principal software engineering manager at Microsoft, working on Microsoft Intune. He is also the founder of Key to Awaken LLC, a coaching business for software engineers who are looking to remove barriers and accelerate growth in their careers. Today, we're going to talk about how he became an engineer really on accident, and that he's actually a musician. We are going to talk about finding fulfillment in our career, how he was able to find it, especially when he got into leadership positions. We're going to talk about building self-awareness and learning to trust our intuition. Something we don't hear a lot about when we're in engineering is that trusting your gut. So we're going to challenge that whole logic first approach that we typically hear in engineering. And yeah, there are a couple other things we're going to talk about today that we typically do not hear when it comes to engineering and engineering conversations and engineers' experiences. So it'll get a little philosophical today, and I hope you enjoy it. It was really, really fun for me. So without further ado, here's Nikki and Bruno. Bruno, I am thrilled to be chatting with you today. I would love to start by asking you, what's your engineering origin story? Why did you pursue engineering? And then I would love to know what you're doing with your engineering degree now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to dive into that story. It's a super interesting story for me because I became an engineer kind of on accident. It wasn't really my intention, actually, to become an engineer. From the age of around 11 or 12, all the way until I was maybe 21, 22, I was actually in pursuit of music as a career. That's really what I wanted to do. I was studying classical saxophone, had private lesson teachers throughout middle school and high school. And my whole goal was to go to university and to get my undergrad, get a master's, get a doctorate, and then become a professor. That was like the big, big dream of what I wanted to achieve. But when I was applying for schools, my parents, they were looking out for me and they said, I don't know how the music thing's going to turn out. So why don't you apply to engineering school? My dad was a mechanical engineer, so he'd been there, done that. And I applied. I got deferred, so I didn't get accepted at the beginning. But then I did my music auditions, got into music school, and then I think the university was like, we already gave him an acceptance letter. We might as well give him a second one. And so that's how I got into engineering in my school at the University of Michigan. But I still didn't really take it super seriously at the very beginning. I'm still very music focused. It wasn't until I had my internships later in college where I actually saw engineering as a possibility as a career. And I eventually got a return offer from my last internship at Microsoft. And
Nice.
it was actually a really hard decision for me when I had to choose, what do I want to do? Do I want to keep pursuing the dream?
Yeah.
Or do I make the decision to go into engineering and see where that takes me? And ultimately, I decided, let me do engineering. Let me see how it goes. If I don't like it in the first couple of years, I'll just go back to school. It's no big deal. It's all good. And that's really what set off my engineering career. And since then, I've been in the industry now for the last 11 years. It's been a wild journey. A lot of things have happened. And just super grateful for my parents for pushing me to go study engineering and for me to, I'm just super happy to have made the decision to ultimately go into engineering as a career.
Yeah. Well, I'm wildly impressed that you continued to pursue engineering, because it's not for the faint of heart. Like, engineering school is hard, and to just go from music to objectively something more challenging for some people than music, that's not a casual thing to do. Like, it speaks a lot to your drive and your passions. And I really also love the fact that you were like, I'll just give it a shot, and if I don't like it, I'll go back. Like, that's wildly unique, because I feel like most engineers, I mean, most people, right? We kind of have this belief that we have to put all of our eggs in one basket, and it's like an all or nothing kind of thing. But it's really amazing that you had that abundance mindset. You're like, yeah, you know what? It's just life. We'll try again. So I love that. That's amazing. So I also think it's amazing that you are very clearly both a creative and engineer, because sometimes we like to keep those, we think those two things are separate, but in reality, like you have to be creative to be an engineer. Do you still do music? Like, do you perform? Is it like just for you, or is it something you dabble with on the side?
It's mostly just for me at this point. I will play here and there.
Yeah.
I play for my daughter. She's 2.5,
Oh.
and it's just a fun age to get her involved a little bit in music and get her exposed to it. Yeah, a lot of my music endeavors these days, I go to the symphony a lot. So every year we pay for tickets and we go probably about 5 or 6 times a year. Just super fun to experience the other side of not being on stage performing, but being the audience member and consuming, which is super fun. And I support a few nonprofit music ensembles as well. And that's been also super fun. All my friends who are they made it in music. They're playing in these groups and they do tours around the country. They played in many different locations, and whenever they come out here to the West Coast, I try and make it down and see the.
That's amazing. I I also, so you have a, what type of engineering degree? Is it mechanical, software, controls?
Computer science.
Computer science. Okay. I'm actually a little surprised you didn't pursue like an audio engineering or like sound engineering for someone that like loves music. What made you decide to do computer science instead of like tangentially be still related to music?
The thought actually went through my head,
Yeah.
and I took a sound engineering course my first year of school because we had an elective that we had to take. There were different types of essentially project courses that we could take. And I decided to do that one because it seemed interesting. And what I found is that I didn't really like it that much. It was very mathy. And I which is hilarious as an engineer to like say, I don't like it because it's very mathy. But that's kind of how I felt about it. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. It's not
Yeah.
super interesting for me. And then the next semester, I took programming. It was our introduction to programming course. And that's really where I fell in love. And I was like, oh, with the problem solving, super interesting.
Mhm.
I think this is what I want to pursue.
Okay. Interesting. I also can relate to the whole like, I don't like math thing. This is just, it's too much math for me. I am also one of those weird engineers that is bad at math. And I love to tell like like my high school students and my college students, like, I simply was bad at it until I got to physics. And then like physics gave me a purpose for the math. And I'm like, okay, now I know why we're doing something. I'm not just objectively memorizing equations just for the fun of it, because that's simply not fun for me. Um, well, that's interesting. I've heard very similar things from a lot of my professional engineers, that there's like one class while they're in school that like exposes them to a different side of engineering or different type of engineering that they didn't really know existed until that point. So knowing that you're a computer science major, have you been able to use your degree in the way that you thought you were going to use it? So, like, did it translate the skills you learned in school? Did it actually translate to what you really got to do in your day job, like when you went to Microsoft?
It absolutely translated. Yeah, like everything I learned was super crucial for me going into my career. There was still a lot I didn't learn in school
Mm.
though. Like everything I learned from a technical standpoint of the problem solving and the coding and all the details, all of that translated super super well. But transitioning into a corporate environment from school is pretty challenging. It's very hard. And I see this challenge for a lot of people that I talk to. I know I coach and mentor people who are early in career, and yeah, it's a big challenge, like big shifts. And there's a lot surprisingly that you're just conditioned to do or conditioned to view things in certain ways from school
Hmm.
that doesn't quite translate when you get into the corporate world. And so that's one thing I found really interesting, especially as I look back on my career. I experienced some of those challenges, and that was the shift that I saw that was more challenging. But my skill set definitely translated directly from my degree.
Yeah. So tell me more about that. I want to know what, because you do, right, coach and mentor early career professionals in the software space. What are some of the like non non college skills that you have to learn to be successful in the corporate world, specifically for software? Because I know I do the same thing, but it's really more in the hardware space, so it's definitely a different culture and different environment. So what do you talk about with them?
Yeah, so there's a few things I think about when it comes to the transition from school into corporate, one of the challenges that I see is the people that you work with who are your authority figures, they change. And the way that you engage with them changes a lot. So if you're a student who's used to having a professor, where the professor is the one who's teaching you everything about the particular course that you're taking, they are in that role. That is their responsibility. When you get into the corporate world and you're working with a manager, your manager doesn't necessarily, they're not necessarily the person who's going to teach you everything you need to know to do the job.
Yep.
And so if you treat them that way, then that relationship doesn't really work very well. But we're just conditioned over time because we've been in school, we've been in that school system forever to operate in that way. That's one example that I see happen often is people don't see that difference in relationship and that shift becomes difficult.
Yeah.
I think the other one is in terms of teamwork, where school is so individual for most people, unless you go to a university of a lot of projects or you grow up in a school system that has a lot of project-based assignments,
Mhm.
then you go into the corporate world where everything really is about let's collaborate and build things together and operate together and do projects together because
Mhm.
we can achieve more as a group of people than we can as individuals.
Yep.
And so that's another big shift that happens for people that I think they don't realize how big of a change that is. But when you start to frame work in those ways and you see how things are different in the corporate world, then you can adapt much more quickly and much more easily.
Mhm. 10,000% agree, because that piece alone is the biggest thing that I talk about with my own students, is that shift from I'm being measured as an individual to I'm being measured as a team, and I will not be successful if I do not know how to work with other people. But I do wanna go before we unpack that, I really wanna talk about this whole, like, relationship dynamic with your boss, because I feel like even as adults, right? Like, I work with people that have decades of experience on me, and they still treat their boss almost like a parent sometimes, where it's like they're nervous or they're afraid to push back, and they expect their boss to have all of the answers, and then people like us get into leadership position, and then we become that, like, figure for them, and I've had to start kind of re it's a lot of inner work that you don't realize you have to do until you're faced with it, and you realize, like, my boss is not my teacher, my boss is not my parental figure, like, they are not an authority figure that I have to win the approval of, right? Like, there's this belief that they have some sort of power over us, and when we're in school, we're taught, "Don't ask a lot of questions," right? Like, "I'm doing this for your benefit, I'm doing this for your safety," whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you hit a point in your adult life where you realize, wait a minute, every adult around me is also making it up as they go. And not everybody makes that shift at the same time. And some of us still, like, we spend our entire lives believing that somebody has the answer that we're searching for. And we forget that we have control of finding the answer. Like, usually the answer is deep within us. It's not like somebody else isn't going to give it to us. Um, so how have you, as a leader, because I know you manage teams now, how have you been mindful of that relationship dynamic and, like, modeled good behavior and helped people with that transition, whether they're, older than you, younger than you, early in their career, late in their career? How have you kind of navigated that?
One really important aspect of being in a leadership role like what I'm in today is, and this is something that in certain points in my career, I didn't see as much, but there were times earlier in my career where I saw my manager and I felt like I always saw just the good side. I always saw like the positives, or there was never, there were times where there wasn't a lot of transparency into the challenges that they were going through or the
Mhm.
challenges that they experienced. And what I have found as a leader is when I'm transparent about challenges that either I have faced in the past as a leader or as an individual contributor, or challenges I'm facing right now, literally going to my team, which I did the other week, and I said, here's where I need help. Like, I'm going through this challenge, and this is what I need from all of you to help support the challenge I'm dealing with right now in my career.
Mhm.
And being open and transparent, for me, that creates so much more psychological safety to have a collaborative environment and for the conversations to be open and collaborative. I find that in the moments, and I've made this mistake too, in the moments where it's that everything is going great and everything is positive and I'm never challenged and that's all they see, it feels fake at times.
Oh my God,
And there's
yes.
so much doubt where they feel like, why is my career not that way? Like Bruno's career seems great, everything seems fine, but my career, I don't feel the same level of stability. I don't feel the same challenges, and I don't feel open to having the conversation because I don't hear about what's happening with him. So that's what I find is creating that reflection almost of the other person because I know some of the challenges they're going through and I want to be able to help. And it helps for me to open up about what my experience is so that they're also willing to have the conversation with me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I've also had really great leaders that showed me like the behind the curtain scenes, right? Because so much of leadership is kind of being that boundary and making sure you are protecting your team from the unnecessary drama and the unnecessary politics, right? Like it's our job as leaders to make sure that our team has what they need to be successful. And we don't always need to show them the messy bits that's happening. But when we can, because I've had amazing leaders in my life that did show me like, hey, this is really the hard conversations that I'm having. And I mean, I learned the hard way that as much as you think when you reach a certain title, right, director, VP, what have you, you think that you can just make decisions and things will just happen, right? Unfortunately, there's always some sort of like level of office politics that you have to deal with. Even if you are quote unquote a decision maker, you still can't make a decision by yourself. Like there's still a circle of people that you have to go chat with and make sure your decision's okay with them. Um, and I appreciate that because I did similar things with my team, especially when like org changes were coming or we had really challenging things going on in the business. I didn't want to lie to them. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything's fine and we're protected and you just keep doing your job. It's important for us to be honest with them and say, yeah, these are stressors and everybody's feeling it. Like I'm not immune to this. And here's how I think it could affect us. And here's what I'm going to do about it. Because I think that's the other aspect of it is here's like, I want to always reiterate, this is my job to make sure you have what you need to be successful. So here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do to go to bat for you. But also here's where things might get a little messy. But here's what I can do for you as a leader to support you at the end of the day. But I love the transparency. I love that aspect of creating psychological safety for your team.
Yeah, it's so important because I have found just in my life in general, like I connect with people where I see parts of me in others, right? It's natural to make that connection. And so that's why I think that transparency is really important is you see like the humanness in the leader and that creates that safety to go and connect with them.
Yeah. So I want to flip that a little bit, and because I think we've definitely talked about what good looks like, but have we ever seen what bad looks like, right? Where we have those leaders that maybe are, I know for me, the leaders that I've not really worked well with are ones that are super stoic and they don't tell me what's going on and all of a sudden I get blindsided. So what about you? What if like, because I love the contrast. I love talking about good, but I want to recognize bad when I see it.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate overall throughout my career with the leaders that I've worked with. I think the challenging times have been when there was something that was happening that I didn't understand, and I didn't have leaders around me that were explaining it very clearly to me.
Mm.
So there's one particular example I remember where I was pretty early in career and I was working on a project and I didn't feel I had the capacity to finish within the time frame that we had. And I went to my manager at the time. We had the conversation and the answer I got was kind of an answer that was, well, the work has to get done. And I was trying to explain, yeah, but I understand. Here's my capacity. Here's how much time I have.
Hmm.
And I didn't quite understand the point of view because that was all the information that I received.
Mm.
And what I think I would have appreciated more was just understanding why can't the work be extended? Why can't there be an extra day? And it didn't make any sense to me. So that
Mhm.
created frustration. At the same time, I didn't ask. And I think
Mm.
that's another important aspect of it is, do I expect my leaders to always read my mind? Well, they can't. And so it helps if I ask the question so that they know, oh, this is where Bruno's thinking. This is the question that he has that he wants an answer to that will make him understand.
Mhm.
Otherwise, people are shooting in the dark. They're just guessing, like, what is the right thing for me to tell you so that this makes sense? Like, this is seems like the right thing to say at this moment. So I don't fault my manager in any way, really. That was the situation I experienced where I felt like things could have been better, but also I was a little bit naive. I didn't know to go and ask the question. If I could go back in time, that's what I would do.
I love that. And I think that's a really important message and an important story for everybody because if it's not all on one person to explain everything, right? Like at the end of the day, we're all humans. And whether you're an individual contributor or a leader, we all have a lot on our plates. And it's both parties, right? It's not a one-way street when it comes to building a relationship and being clear about what you need to be successful. um i'm I'm very much that person. Like I will ask questions until I'm blue in the face. Like I want to make sure I completely understand what you're asking of me before I start running in the wrong direction. Because one of my old bosses, I loved this, she used to say, um she loved to go ugly early. So she would like take, okay, this is the direction you want me to go in. This is the task. I'm going to go start on it. I'm going to figure out what my questions are. And then I'm going to show you a little bit of what I've done to make sure I'm going in the right direction rather than completely finish an assignment and miss the mark entirely. But that was like her specific method. I'm the kind of person that I want to make sure I fully understand what you're asking and what the vision is and what level of detail you're looking for before I even start working. And we had to learn that about each other to figure out, okay, this is how I like to work. This is how you like to work. And I think it's important for both leaders and individual contributors to remember that we're all human. Everybody is going to need a different thing to be successful. And as much as it's on us as leaders to ask the right questions and make sure we are getting to know our team, to make sure we are showing up for them, it's also on the team to say, hey, boss, this is what I need from you. This is how I like to work. So that I can make sure I'm giving you what you need. Because there are plenty, like I've had this situation on my team many a time. There was someone on my team who every time I would explain something in detail, she took it super offensively because I thought that she was dumb and that she needed me to explain everything for her. And at one point she finally came to me. She was like, Nikki, do you think I'm stupid? Like I'm an engineer. I know what you're asking me to do. Why do you keep explaining things? And it took me a minute and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I want to make sure you have all the information you need to be successful. And she was like, I don't need all of this. I just need like 2 bullets and I'm good to go. Awesome. Cool. Run with it. Um, but I learned that the hard way and she had to give me the feedback in an interesting way, to make sure that I finally pivoted, gave her what she needed to be successful.
That's so good. Yeah, it's a great example of really owning your career more, because it's really easy to just go about your career and everything around you is happening and
Hmm.
you just accept it. It's like, people are telling me these things, work is this way. I think when you really start to own your career and you say, my career is my accountability. It's not owned by my manager, it's not owned by my organization, my leadership team. That's not it. It's
Hmm.
owned by you. And so when you're having those experiences, it's important for you to realize, what difference should I make and what's the responsible thing I should do if I have total accountability, responsibility for my own career. Then you
Yes.
make those decisions that lead to better outcomes.
Yep. I love that phrase, owning your career. Because I know when I was really young, like fresh out of school, I expected a career path to be laid out for me. Like I expected someone to be like, because that's what they tell you in engineering school, right? You become engineer one, then engineer two, then engineer three, and then engineering manager. And so I was like, that's my life now. But it's not. Every company has a different way of approaching career progression. And especially like nowadays, people jump around a lot. Roles change, requirements change. So the idea that you are just going to be handed a roadmap for the path to whatever, whether it's to leadership or to chief engineer, whatever that looks like for you, I don't think that really exists anymore. And I also remember when I think it was HR started using that language, like, you're in the driver's seat of your career. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. What do you mean I'm in the driver's seat? I need someone to give me guidance. So I do think that there's has to be a balance, right? There has to be here's a general direction. Here's what's available to you. But also, if you don't like that, you can do things. So a question for you as a leader, how have you helped your team kind of develop their own career paths, and maybe how have you developed your own, and how did you kind of navigate your way into leadership?
Yeah, I look for opportunities for people to really be authentic.
Mm.
That's to me that's really important because I had a moment in my career where I don't feel I was being authentic to myself in my growth in my career. And I was trying to follow the path of somebody else who was a very technical person, really, really good with details, a little bit more assertive than me in conversations. And when I was trying to emulate that, I just didn't feel like I was myself. And I eventually hit a wall where it stopped working. And it made me realize if I want to continue to be successful, I need to do it in my own way. I can't copy someone else. I can't follow someone else's path exactly the way that they did it. And that was a big eye opener for me. And it made me realize people can be successful in different ways because me and that other person, we both are very successful people. We just went completely different paths and we operate in completely different ways. But I have seen with that proof that you can be successful by having different traits, by approaching work in different ways. So I always talk to people on my team about and look for what are the areas that they're really strong in, what are the capabilities they bring to the table, the skill sets that they have. And then it's really about how do I amplify that as much as possible, still find the areas to improve on. It's not about ignoring all of that, but I like amplifying strengths and finding opportunities for people that will really highlight the areas that they're strong in and at the same time help them to develop in the areas where they need to develop in without it being a detriment to the project, without setting them up for failure, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely look for authenticity, look for people's strengths, want to activate those as much as possible, and then help guide people through the challenges and the learnings that they need to continue moving forward in their career.
Yeah. So I want to talk about authenticity for a minute because I feel like people use this word a lot, like just be your full self, be your authentic self. And we talked a little bit about doing the inner work of okay, I have to know who I am as a person and who my boss is, right? Like you're not a parent, you're not a teacher. Um, how have, and you also mentioned that you hit a roadblock at some point where you're like, this isn't going to work for me. How did you recognize that? How did you develop that self-awareness to know, this is who I am, this is my value system, this is what I want for my own life, and realizing that you are not the other person, that you can't completely just copy paste somebody else's life and try and make it yours. How did you kind of come to those realizations?
Yeah, I had a lot of self-awareness at the time, and I attribute a lot of my self-awareness honestly to my upbringing, to my cultural background. Like I'm Japanese, but I was born in Brazil, but I grew up in the US, so it's very mixed.
Wow.
But my Japanese heritage I really feel is I lean on the being on my own, a lot of deep thinking, a lot of retrospecting on my life and things that are happening, sometimes to my detriment. Obviously, you get stuck in your thoughts and you spiral out of control and things are bad. But it's also very helpful to be more self aware and understand what's happening in the current situation. And so I feel, and especially in the last couple of years, I've just been very, very aware of what's going on with me internally and whether I'm using the things I'm good at and my skills to the best of my ability or not. So in that moment when I was facing those challenges, when I was following that other person, I I went through a week of pain where I was working late for the entire week, like very late, like 12 a.m., 1 a.m. And at the end of the week, I was just like so tired, exhausted, right? And I really had to reflect. And there was a big turning point for me where I had to look at what is the actual problem that I'm experiencing. And as I did that self reflection, I realized here's everything I'm trying to do, here's everything I'm trying to be. And then I said, is this what I want? And what I realized is that wasn't what I wanted. Like, I don't want to become that super technical person. I don't want to go become an architect. I knew at the time already I wanted to become a manager.
Mm,
And so, why was I so worried about being so great in all these other areas when I could lean on the skill set I had that was leading me towards the path of management?
mm,
That's really what made me realize. So I had to question myself. And I do this a lot. I ask myself a lot of questions every single day. And
yeah.
just having a moment to have that space, whether it's sometimes it's just 5 minutes, sometimes I need an hour to really sit down. I need to write down my thoughts. That helps me to reflect and give me more clarity on what the next step will be for me.
That's amazing. And that's so brave, right? Because there's so many of us that aren't comfortable being alone with our thoughts. And sometimes it can be scary to ask ourselves those questions of what I really want, because it might be different than what you're quote unquote supposed to want. Like I know for me, I I was part of this program, actually did like literally all of the Tony Robbins programs. And one of the, I think it was After the Date with Destiny, um, the coach that we'd all become really good friends. He was like, Nikki, he gave me this assignment. He goes, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. What do you really want? Or what do you really need? What do you really want? And what's standing in your way? And at first I was like, what do you mean? What do I need? I need food. I need water. I need shelter. And he was like, yes, but dig deeper, right? There's like, we need more things. Like that's a basic survival need. Awesome. Um, but digging deeper, right? Like I need a sense of fulfillment. I need to know that the work I'm doing is contributing to the greater good of the world, right? I need to know that I'm making a difference in it. Maybe it's just one person's life, right? Like I crave that to my core. Um, and so the idea, like, then you get into like, okay, well, what do I want, right? Like, what do I want to do with that information? There's a time where I I didn't really know how to take this deep need and put it into work, right? Like, what does this mean to take this like deep need to want to serve and give, and not just become like just like working in a charity, right? Like, there's more that we can do. So it took me a while to kind of unpack that, but it was scary. Like it was a very scary moment for me because I had at that point in my career, I had everything you're supposed to want. I had the house in the great neighborhood. I had I was a director in my 20s. I owned my first place like in my early 20s. So all the things that I lived the American dream. I was supposed to do all of the things and I had achieved it in my 20s. And so here I was like, wait a minute, this is something people work their whole lives for. And I'm questioning it. Like, how rude of me to question this. But it really wasn't what I wanted. I wanted so much more. So you mentioned that like you knew you wanted to be a manager. What about being a manager was so important or is so important to you? What does it mean to you to be a manager?
I I just see people as my product, honestly. That's kind of how I view it, is like I I just want to help people.
Yeah.
And the people problems are super interesting for me because it's so dynamic. Like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Where, like, the problem solving for building software is all very rational. It's very logical. It's interesting. I think over time, I honestly have fallen a little bit out of love with the whole process of building technology.
Mm.
Like, I don't think it's bad. I think it's great. Like, I love using tech. Tech is awesome.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
super, super cool as a field, and everything that's going on right now is really interesting. I just find that connecting with people to me matters a lot more. And seeing people thrive and become successful, I get way more fulfillment from that experience of guiding somebody and seeing them get the promotion, seeing them grow in their career, see their confidence build up,
Hmm.
because it feels so tangible.
Hmm.
Whereas when you work in a big company, you work on a big product, there's times where you're building the product. It can be hard to kind of see the end result because there's so much that's going on that's involved in that. There's a whole nother team that's doing marketing, a whole nother team that's doing sales, getting insights from customers. You get at times, but sometimes you don't. And so I find that that direct connection to people and transformation of people, that fulfillment and that direct work to me is just the best. That's
Yes.
what I love.
Yeah. No, I love that. Do you think that you can only get that if you're a manager? Can you get that as an individual contributor without being a people leader?
You can for sure. And there's yeah, I and what I have found is that the individual contributor path as you move higher up and the manager path as you move higher up, there's a lot of similarity between the two. I just didn't have a drive to be like the technical advisor on work.
Hmm.
And I know that when you become like a software architect, as an example, there's this expectation for you to be a technical advisor to other people, to help with decision making, to understand the details. And that's not really my strength, is what I have found. And that's not what I wanted in the end. I really
Yeah.
wanted to be connected with the people and helping people to become successful.
Yes. I love that because I also feel that there's this stereotype that engineers are bad with people, but I mean, look at us. We're living proof that that's not true. um, I I really struggle with that narrative because it feels very in conflict with the fact that we are humans, right? Like, yes, I have an engineering degree, and yes, I identify as an engineer as part of my identity, but like I'm a human and I love connecting with humans. And yes, I have this amazing like ability to be logical, but it's my humanity that makes me successful in applying that logic because I'm not a machine. I have to trust my intuition. I have to trust the human part of me to know what's right. I can't just, I'm not a machine. I'm not a computer. I'm not, and I think especially in this age of AI, if you were to just throw some of the emotional problems that we deal with, right, the human problems we deal with, it's going to give you this like sterile answer that would not work in the real world because we're dealing with humans and humans are messy. And as much as we like to say, we're predictable in mass, humans are unpredictable one on one, right? You can't, you have no idea what to expect. Um, so, how have you kind of managed to learn that balance of yes, I'm an engineer and yes, I use the logic part of me a lot, but I also am a human at my core, right? I think of because we've talked a lot about like self-awareness and empathy and psychological safety from like emotional intelligence, language standpoint. But I also want to talk about intuition because this is something that again, we don't talk about in engineering that we have an intuition. And as much as we like to say we make data driven decisions, in reality, we make emotional decisions and then go find data to back up the emotional decisions that we made. So, how have you learned to embrace your intuition and embrace just trusting yourself, plain and simple?
It's hard because you're not always going to be right. I think that's right. That's the biggest challenge
Yeah.
is being open and willing to take some chances and fail at times, but know that you're going to learn through failure and
Hmm.
continue to move forward and continue to grow. Yeah, I think the way that I leverage my intuition a lot is I always want to have a good sense of how people are doing mentally and emotionally. And so I feel I lean on my intuition a lot there. Like if I'm meeting with somebody one on one and there's something that just feels off, I will sometimes just pause discussion and I will just open up the conversation and say like, "Hey, I want to make sure that like you're doing okay. Is everything going okay? Like, let's talk about it because I want to make sure that whether it's personal life, whether it's something at work, like is something bothering you?" and creating that space for that person. Because we get stuck in this cycle of, well, I go to these meetings, I have to present status on my work, I need to show progress in what's going on right now. And you feel like there's never room for those types of conversations. And so that's why I find my intuition helps the most, is in understanding my people and then seeing like opening the floor up and having the conversations there. That's super.
Yeah. Is there, you mentioned, you have an amazing multicultural background, but is there anything that you've done to help develop your intuition at all?
I worked with an intuition coach,
Cool.
which was a really, really cool experience. Yeah, my intuition coach, Dunya, she's an amazing, amazing human being, such a great person. And yeah, her and I really dove into a few different concepts. We dove into human design and really looked at my human design, which was awesome. And I know you and I
Yes.
talked a little bit about that.
Yes, I want to talk
And
about this.
yes, absolutely. And yeah, for me, like it was just a very interesting experience talking with somebody who, for her entire life, has been really dedicated to this idea of intuition
Mm,
and understanding what it means for her and really helping people to see the unseen. And that was really what we focused on through the work that we did together. And I learned so much about who I am as a person through that experience. And I found that it allowed me to hone my intuition more into who I am. So now there's moments where when I feel in conflict with, but I don't understand, like I feel a sense of friction
hmm
internally, then I always lean back on my human design and I say, like, is there something here that's causing this tension, this friction? And how do I lean into who I am as a person to resolve this in the best way that I can? So that's been a lot of my learning from working on intuition.
That's amazing. I don't know a ton of engineers that talk about human design or know about human design. So I really hope whoever is listening to this also raises their hand and be like, oh my gosh, me too. So tell me more for those engineers out there that don't know what human design is. Can you tell us a little bit about it and tell us what your human design is?
Yeah, so my view on human design, it's a little bit like a Myers-Briggs, but on steroids. That's how I would describe it. It's like,
Yes.
right, it's like a personality test, but way deeper, a lot more detail. And it describes a lot of different aspects about people. So there's these different personas. For example, I'm a projector. And so as a projector, the areas that I'm stronger in are looking at doing the deeper thinking, looking at the bigger picture, seeing more of the vision, less in the weeds and the details. So it makes sense the path that I followed when I saw my human design. I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
hmm
There's a lot of different aspects of human design in terms of things that will create conflict with you or things that will create harmony with you. There's other aspects like environments that support you, that are better for you. For example, my environment is valleys, which are defined as places where there's people around me that are communicating. So there's a social aspect, but it's not necessarily me being involved in the social aspect. It's just like me being in an environment where people are talking, things are happening. And then I realized, like that's why I like going to the office. Like I like the environment of being there because I see what's happening around me. Other people are doing their work. There's activity going on. I feel more motivated to get into my work and get things done. And so the tons of different aspects around human design. But that's a little bit of insight into what it looks like.
That's awesome. Thank you. I am also a projector, and I resonate with so much of what you just said. Um, and it really wasn't until like I didn't find out anything about my human design until a couple years ago. And when someone described the aspect of being a projector as like being invited to things, because there's, especially when it comes to like running your business or doing your work, right? I think of the Sarah Blakely model where she literally would just like put her product on the shelves. She would just like, you know, pound the pavement to get her stuff in front of people. And when I was very early in my engineering career, I tried to do that. I tried to pound the pavement and get a job, and I got 199 rejections. And I just shut down. It was so like I could not handle that kind of rejection. But then when I finally got my first invitation, and I like sitting where I am now, looking back on my entire career, every single job I have ever had, I've never applied for. Even like my very first one, it wasn't even the job I applied for that I ended up getting. Every job I've ever had has been handcrafted for me. And I've been invited to come and join these teams or these organizations. And it was a wonderful realization to be like, oh, that's why Nikki just like grinding never achieves the results. But when I make connections with other people, it opens more doors for me and I get invited to do things. And like the success I've had in my career has all been from Nikki building relationships with people and getting invited to do more things. And that is very in line with like my human design of being a projector. So I know for me, it also just helped me feel it was a lot more empowering when I finally understood, like, okay, this is how my brain works. This is how my career is going to work. And it put me more in the driver's seat. So I stopped wasting time and energy doing things that I simply wasn't built for. Because I'm very much with you. As much as I love getting into, I will get in the weeds and like get my hands dirty for a short time. And then I'm like, all right, I've done it once. I can move on. I've in my brain of like, I've mastered it. I've done it one time. I'm good enough. Like that's enough for me. I know that's not accurate, but my brain's like, nah, you did it once. That's it. You can call it done. And I really enjoy the aspect of leading and creating environments for people to be successful. And I am much more of like a systems big picture thinker. And I would be super interested to know if there's other like engineering projectors out there that are also systems engineers. And if we are also the ones that kind of move into engineering leadership. But thank you for telling us all
Yeah,
about human
absolutely.
design. So I want to just kind of wrap up with you because we've talked about amazing aspects of emotional intelligence without saying the words emotional intelligence. We talked about self-awareness, trusting our intuition, psychological safety, really diving again deeper into what it means and different tools that we can learn more about ourselves and getting comfortable with asking the hard internal questions. And we've talked a lot about great tools, but are there any other tips or tricks or tools or resources that you would recommend for people to help develop more of those emotional intelligence skills of empathy, self-awareness, communication, clarity, things like that?
I've learned so much from working with coaches in my life.
Hmm.
Like that's been such an important part of my journey over the last couple years. Is obviously I mentioned my intuition coach Dunya, I'm currently working with a communication coach Brendan, who's been just such a great person to have in my life. I work with a corporate career coach named Zach, who also made a huge turnaround from where I was when I was dealing with a lot of burnout and a lot of challenge in my career. And yeah, having people in your life and that proximity, that community of people that are there to support you and help you, that's been super important for me. So in general, I would say like you need to find those people, whether it's a coach where you're paying for support, you're paying for help and you're getting that, or it's just people in your life that you really connect with at a deeper level and that really care for you, that understand who you are. Because it's if we're alone all the time and we're just with our own thoughts, then we're subject to whatever's happening internally. It sometimes takes someone else from the outside to really pull us back into reality and make a point and say, yeah, but like let's look at things from a different point of view. Or like I had similar thoughts and experiences. Here's my perspective. And I think through that experience of talking to people, working with people who give you that type of advice, you
Hmm.
start to learn the patterns, you start to see the patterns. And if you're an engineer, you're probably great at pattern recognition. Like a lot of engineers are really good at that, right? And so when you surround yourself with people who help you see and develop those new patterns of when I'm experiencing these challenges, when I have these emotions, when I have these reactions, then here's a different way to see things. Here's a different perspective. Then as those things happen in your life, you become more conscious, you become more self-aware, you can better self-regulate in on your own without needing that third party involved at that point. And so my recommendation is to find your proximity, find your community of people, find the people in your life that will help you. And I think take the plunge, take a chance and see if it works. It's all experiments. We're just running experiments throughout our lives and seeing what works and what doesn't. And so be willing to go and take that experiment and see where it takes you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for those amazing resources. And I definitely would love to link profiles or anything in the show notes for people so they can also benefit from those amazing humans. Um, Thank you so much for your time and your expertise and sharing these amazing stories. I'm really excited to hear how people feel and resonate with the human design aspect of the conversation. And I also really appreciate that we talk so much about emotional intelligence without just using the buzzwords. So thank you for having such a fun conversation about it.